leading before you founded the company, just love a little bit more about your background and what led you to founding your company.
Well, thank you, Jason. And thanks to Purpose Driven Marketing team as well for having me on this panel. I guess if I go way back, I grew up in a small town in northern part of India, relatively rural town. I guess rural and education town, I would say. It's agriculture and education were the two sort of main professions in that area. Studied engineering, got a job, moved to California and then to Connecticut area, and then Boston, where I'm based now. Have been in sort of the telecom space for quite some time from the early part of my career, and traveled extensively in my work. I would say maybe 45 to 50 countries. And, I think when you are surrounded by, like your children having an iPhone and a tablet and, everybody else sort of on their gadgets, it's very easy to miss that that's not commonplace, right? And I think that travel to South America, Latin America countries, Southeast Asia, Africa, I kind of realized that, that isn't a commonplace. And I think that sort of, I would say, didn't necessarily directly led to what we are doing today, but it sort of planted the seed for it, right, in the back of your mind, because, you form opinions, you see things, right, and you draw conclusions. So I would say that sort of was the initial thought process began from there.
That's great. I think when you travel, I don't think it, obviously when you travel, and especially to other countries, you really start to open up and see the world in a very, very different way. And it also increases your emotional intelligence. So I think all that stuff kind of led you to where you are today with Reach Mobile. A lot of companies, and this was talked about in the last panel, and it's often talked about that when people think about purpose, it's become popular. So there's definitely a lot of existing brands that have bolted on purpose to their businesses, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then there's some businesses that actually the purpose is part of the company from the very, very beginning, of the beginning idea of the company. That it's inherently part of the business and the culture of the company. So for Reach Mobile, what led you to your purpose of bridging the digital divide? Where was that born from, and how was that developed?
I think you are right. I think there are businesses that bolt on purpose, businesses like ourselves that have kind of purpose as the core offering, if you will. And I agree. I think both are good models. And I think for us, as I was mentioning in your previous question, the travel led to sort of the anecdotal evidence, right, of people's access. And then, the travel was very relevant in the sense that, we were working on bringing digital connectivity by integrating with mobile carriers around the world and allowing businesses to offer free data to their consumers. Like if you are shopping on an app, the shopping app doesn't use up your data plan. And that sort of felt like doesn't scale, right? It's sort of very, driven for one purpose of like, okay, you're shopping or you're banking, right? But then the idea was like, what about just access in general? And then we researched, the data, the most published data is on World Economic Forum that outlines that, there are 3.9 billion people who are unconnected in this world, which is a huge number if you think about it. And majority of them happen to be women, right? And I think then you sort of marry that with the concept of, two things. I think one, that charity doesn't scale, right? So you have to find a way to scale it, right? Where it can grow on its own. And it can be a business and not just, nothing wrong with just the charitable aspect of it, but at least our view was to scale it. It has to be, a business concept. And then number two, I think a lot of us, especially in today's world, we kind of have the desire to do something good for the world. And we sort of, at least in my case, you then defer it to say, okay, later part of my career, I got to get my house paid off. I got to get my kids to college, right? Life comes in the way. And I think if you could sort of, create a corporation, create a business that has the purpose at its core, that has a scalable crowd-funded way of, giving connectivity to people around the world. So you're doing good, but at the same time, it's a business. It's your regular corporate job that has its primary responsibility to deliver return to your investors, right? So at the end of
Yep.
it, all you're doing is, like the previous speaker who was on before me, shifting dollars from giving it to, I don't know, the Facebook of the world to just giving connectivity to other people. So I think that sort of led to this path, and we are very excited and happy to be on this path. And of course, we are at the very early stage of this path, so only time will tell if it was a good idea or not. So far, it seemed like a great idea, and people are enjoying it. And we have connected lots of people, which one of our Reach 10 principle is take pride in every person you connect, and we do.
That's brilliant. It's 3.9 billion people. That's, and how many people so far have you helped connect?
A fraction of that number. It's the precise number is, I think, 77,000. So it's a pretty small number relative to where we are.
Yep.
But we're hoping that number will grow over time.
That's 77,000 stories, though. I know we talked in the previous panel, they're talking about how like some people just tell stories. When you're giving someone access, it really is deeply meaningful. And it's not about gaming. It's probably not about social. This is actually helping women gain employment. This is about helping, women make sure that they're getting the right medications. I saw some of the stories on your website, which I really appreciated that they were there and prepped for this. And, one woman was talking about like she had no idea that what she was prescribed to her was not what she was getting for years, and only through internet access and being able to research herself and find the information herself, not just trusting what other people were telling her, she found that she was, not being disserviced. And, any particular stories for you that help, resonate how important this really is to the people you're serving?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I answer that, Jason, I think let me stand corrected on the numbers. 77,000 gigabytes of data is what we offered. The number of people is much, much smaller. So I hate to burst the bubble, but it's 1,100, which is significantly smaller than, I would love to get to 77,000. We're not there. But I think to your point, yes, it's important to measure, and we are a tech company. We measure pretty much everything. It's important to measure the impact as well. But, you can't put a number on the stories, right? You can't, it's just the value of that is significantly higher. And there are many stories. I think one that stands out for me, and I wasn't there, my team was there. We make a point that everybody who works on Reach at one point or the other should visit the people we are connecting. Not everybody has done that so far, but it's an ongoing process. And this person was talking about the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, women are more impacted by the digital divide or lack of connectivity, if you will. And she was alluding to the fact that she has a phone and she's connected to the internet and has access to information, she is able to have an equitable position in her bigger family, right? The presence. I mean, just think about the sort of further on impact of that, right? I mean, I have a little daughter, right? I'm, very much sort of, I'm all for the empowerment, right? And I feel it's a very important, human service to do in our lifetime. And I think that to me has a lasting impact, right? Because that builds confidence, and, that builds sort of, seat at the table in the household. And I think that goes towards sort of not just you're impacting the current individual, but you're impacting the generation that's going to come after.
Absolutely. Yeah. Outside, a lot of companies that are purpose driven, are purpose driven in many different ways. So outside of this core purpose of addressing the digital divide, are there other initiatives, purpose driven initiatives that you're backing as a company?
I think so. There are a couple of things. I think one is that giving connectivity alone isn't sufficient, right? You also have to kind of, if you are getting something for the first time, right? And it's not for us. It's muscle memory today, right? If we are connected all the time, In fact, we're trying to not connect too much ourselves these days, right? But I think, when you connect somebody for the first time, you can't just hand somebody a phone and walk away, or give them the service and walk away. So I think we partner with NGOs in respective regions, who then hold sort of sessions with the locals, right, to help them figure out how to take advantage of that connectivity, right? So that way the impact of it is much bigger, right? So that's sort of a purpose-driven initiative beyond that. And I wish we help them more in creating courses or in creating curriculum and so on. But we feel like there's a lot of that content out in the market, and the NGOs are very well equipped to use that. And they have been doing an amazing job, sitting with them. We had recordings where a couple of our team members went down to a local rural village along with the NGO partner, and they conducted 2-day sessions, 40 women each day, and teaching them how to use WhatsApp, teaching them how to check the weather, or how to check when to put medicine in your crop and which medicine to put, and how to help your kids answer a math question from their schoolwork. So I think that sort of amplifies the impact that you're making. So you're not just counting the bytes and the minutes and the text that you're giving somebody, but the further impact. And I think that's on the recipient side. But then at the end of the day, this whole machinery is powered by crowdfunding, which means that there are paying customers of our product, our product is available in the United States. So that's all in the US. Our impact, we have it in 3 countries today, which is US, of course, home. And we partner with an NGO in DC, and then Africa and Nigeria, and then India, those 3 countries to start with. And we'll expand as we get bigger. But then for our customers who are basically making it all happen, we focus a lot on, do right by our customers and do right by the individuals we connect, right? So I think there is another sort of, piece there. I mean, of course, I have the purpose-driven marketing background here, but the whiteboard behind me has simple, transparent, and honest as sort of the 3 principles we run by. And it is evident from the feedback that we're getting from the market. Trustpilot, which is an independent review site. We are the only mobile service in the US that has 5 stars rating, right? Over 350 reviews or 325 reviews. And, people love it, and they like the idea of how we are building the service, the customer service, and the honesty that we have. No fine print anywhere in our product. It's not allowed. And one of our principle is, offer things to your customers that you would buy yourself or you would use yourself in the manner that you would like it for yourself. And I think that sort of ties back. I mean, it's, of course, we're not giving it free in that case, but it's tied to the broader notion of, kind of making lives better, if you will, right?
Right. In another interview, someone was talking about, the potential of the cookie apocalypse, the deprecation of IDFA and the third-party cookie going away. And there was, some rumblings around, hey, we're just going to go back to branding. And, so a lot of people are thinking about that, if performance marketing gets more difficult to track and report and attribution and things like that. And they were like, then it's just, he or she who yells the loudest out their message, wins. It's all about reach and frequency. But in telecom, it's really super competitive. Everyone's going to say they've got great coverage, that they've got great customer service. Now, to actually have good coverage and great customer service is maybe a rarity. But then on top of it, you've got this philanthropic or this purpose-driven part of your business. So how important is that in terms of driving a real true differentiation between you and all the others? How important is bringing that message of your purpose into your advertising? And then when someone does become a customer, how important it is to at the onboarding to the brand? So just trying to figure out how are you leveraging your purpose, not over leveraging it and like, oh, look how great we are, but just being honest and upfront about who you are and using that in advertising and potentially retention.
Sure. So I think I'll answer both parts, Jason. I think the part of getting people on board, and then once they are our customers, how we communicate with them. So I think for the first part, we do mention our purpose-driven in various settings based on where we are advertising and how. We do rely a lot on word of mouth and referrals, right? That's sort of a big source for us. It's a very important source for us. And I think one thing I would say is that we don't necessarily mention our purpose in the face, so to speak. It's not the dominant part of our messaging out there. At the end, if you are buying a mobile service for yourself, you rely on it, right? It's probably one of the most important utility these days, in front of you. So reliability and a good network is very important. So we always lead with that, because to our customers, they need to have a most reliable service. And then number two, they need to be able to get to people when they have a problem or they have a question. And we have a wonderful technology behind our product that makes it super simple and makes customer service easy, right? We have the 5-star rating not just because we have the best people. We do have the great people in the company, but we also have good technology and processes and policies behind it, right? Common sense is probably the biggest sort of asset that we use internally. So that definitely stands us apart, and it's very clear because we're definitely getting the ratings that reflect that, right? And then we mentioned that, hey, if you can have the best network, the best service along with it, and you can make the world a better place, then why wouldn't you? Like, why not, right? Is the question. So we don't lead with the fact that we are purpose driven, but we complement it with the essentials of the service we're selling, if that makes sense.
Oh, that totally makes sense. And also, aren't there things like within the app that, like, when people go into the app, that it's right there, it shows how many people are being serviced, how many people are getting support, giving easy access to some of the stories behind it?
Yeah. So once the customers are onboarded and they are, using a product, they have, right in the home screen of the app, they can watch new testimonials, new videos of people getting connected. Again, not right in their face. It's not the very first thing they see, but if they just scroll one screen down, it's all there. And we did, sort of toyed with the idea of having a one-to-one connection where you could actually sort of quote unquote chat in the app with the person you connected. But after giving it much thought, we decided that that wasn't just the right thing. We felt like it was an imposition, and it wasn't something that we felt, if it were me on the other side of it, would I feel comfortable, right? We always kind of go back to that. And we didn't pass that test. So we didn't do that. Though the technology exists, we can make it anonymous. We can do all that. But I think what we're doing, we seem to be getting good input. People can share it right from their app. They can share, the quantified version of their personal impact or the overall impact of the initiative. Everything is transparent, published right in there. And we continue to publish, short video, excerpts of stories. We try not to put too many of them out there. We have probably only published maybe 5 to 10% of the stories that we have recorded so far. So we have a lot of content that we continue to put out.
Excellent. You can't do this on your own, and you can't change the world on your own. So it's important to actually have partners and other companies that can help and collaborate with. What are some of the partners that you've worked with to work against your mission?
Sure. So Jason, there are sort of two aspects to us being able to connect people. One is that if we're doing it, for example, in Nigeria, we need to have a connectivity in that country, right, to be able to give it to somebody. And we are in a very fortunate position. We have maybe 45 to 50 mobile carrier integrations around the world on our platform. So we are uniquely positioned to be able to do it. And then the second thing you need to find the right people to give it to, right? So, and we are certainly not an expert in that. We are not the right people to figure out who should get this connectivity. So for that, we basically turn to experts. So we partner with several NGOs. We've partnered with Lift Foundation in DC, the Nudge Foundation in India, Ripples Foundation in Nigeria, partnering Hope into Action and Yuva Unstoppable in India. So we rely on the NGOs to identify the right set of people and also manage how long they want to give connectivity, right? So one big difference, right, in when you're selling a one-time good versus connectivity is that you cannot, you can't give shoes once and be done, or give glasses once and be done. This is internet connectivity. You can't give it to somebody for a day, right? So you got to give it month after month, every single day. So we usually commit to minimum of 12 months of connectivity. Though so far, by the way, in the last 2 years, we have not taken it away from anybody we've given it to. So they continue to get it until the NGO decides that, this person has graduated from the program and they are now self-sufficient. They have income coming in. they don't need it, right? So we leave it to the NGO. We make a minimum commitment. We let them identify who, and then they also then help train these people on how to make the best use of it. Is it for farming, for example, in Nigeria, they use it for farming techniques. So they send them video lessons about farming. They send them notifications when to water, when not to water, and so on, right? So they make the connectivity significantly, amplified in its value, and we rely on them to identify the right population set, right? So we don't get in the business of who we give it to, because we're not experts in it. So we rely on our
Right.
partners for that. So you're right. It takes a village, right? So it literally does in our case. So and we work with experts in it. So we do the technology that we are experts in, and then we rely on geo partners and our relationship with mobile carriers around the world to make it happen.
It's so brilliant. You could change a small community just by lifting up, that that female population and making sure they have easy access to real information. And I grew up in a small town. Sometimes you just, like before the internet, so you just rely on the, other people's opinions or ideas. And this actually allows people to gather and crowdsource the best ideas out there that can help, lift their lives. And it's really amazing. Going back to this concept of other purposes, obviously inclusion, diversity have been, hugely important to many companies over the years. It's become more prevalent now, and companies are talking about it. But also, there's just tons of that are going into the training and programs within companies to drive inclusion and diversity. Is that something that's near and dear to your heart as well? And how does that play out within the organization internally?
Absolutely. I think, one of the purpose, when I created Reach Mobile as a company was, it's a journey that matters, right? Not just a destination. I always felt that, everybody who walks in the door at some point, some people may stay with the company for a long period, some people for less. As long as when they walk out, they're better off than they walked in, is sort of mission accomplished, right? For that sort of individual, at least from my point of view. And we are inherently a global company. We have offices and people in US, in different places within US, in India, in Colombia, in Brazil, in Mexico, and then we have partners we work with very closely in Africa, different countries in Africa, and Southeast Asia. So we have multiple languages, colors, races, all people. I think we are pretty much focused on, hiring the best people regardless of, where they come from. So there's that aspect of it. But then there is also a deliberate aspect of, hey, there should be more women in tech, right? And you cannot just simply say that, hey, you know what, I'm just going to hire the best people and, chips fall where they may. At some point we decided that wasn't sufficient, right? And we basically went and said, hey, we're going to tend to hire this type of person for these roles, even if it takes us longer to find them. Maybe we don't put college degree as a prerequisite. Maybe we don't, do X, Y, Z. So we've done that. And I think, there is a significant passion from a leadership standpoint from me personally that drives that. And, that kind of sets the tone and the culture, within the organization as well. We take a, lot of pride in doing that, right, as a company as well. And, I think it's a lovely environment to work in. And we are hiring, by the way. We have lots of open positions. So, we are aggressively pursuing hiring right now. So in all of
you and everybody else. I see. I've been on a 6,000-mile road trip, and every place I go to, whether it's a large city or a small town, there's help wanted signs everywhere. People are desperate, to hire, great people. And you did mention, like, it's one thing to say you're always going to hire the best person, for the role, but you do have to do unnatural acts, or you do have to work really hard to open up the aperture and make sure that you're open-minded with an outward mindset of, like, just, cutting out some of the bias in the hiring process and making sure that you're bringing in, maybe a larger selection of people to come into, to interview. And while you can't say, hey, for this role, we absolutely want to hire a woman, I don't think anybody would ever, you can't really do that, but you can say, I want to see a diverse candidate pool. And, we at LiveIntent have done a bunch of different stuff to kind of make people aware of their own bias and not shame them for that, but just make sure that people are aware. We all have bias.
Right.
So going through training and then sucking, certain practices out of the interview and hiring process that actually reinforce bias, I think are important. Are there specific things around training, interview training, or actively seeking for candidates in areas where, there's a higher population, of
Sure,
say
sure.
like women, like sometimes we'll interview in like women's colleges or things like that. But any practices, trainings, or things that you're doing to help
I
level
guess
the playing field?
I would answer it by saying that, um, I guess since you're talking about women in tech, I would say that I am a minority in a US office, when it comes to women in tech, so we must be getting something right, right? So it's proof is in the pudding here, right?
Yeah,
So, I wouldn't say that there was one deliberate action that led to it or not, but I am, or my gender is a minority in an office here, so we're definitely getting some of those things right.
that's great. That's excellent. So with all these kind of purpose-driven initiatives, whether it's hiring practices of diversity and inclusion, or your main purpose of bridging the digital divide, um, how do you go about measuring, what you've been able to accomplish, the impact on the business, the impact on your culture, maybe even, retention of your people? How do you measure the success of these sorts of initiatives? And if you don't have a way, how might you in the future maybe measure the impact of these initiatives?
Right. So I think there are certain things, Jason, that are directly measurable. And then there are certain things that we kind of see the evidence of it in our everyday sort of process at work. So
Right.
what we measure, explicitly is the people we connect, how much data, we have given, for example, 71 terabytes of data, 5 million text messages, 17 million minutes of talk, right? So these are the things we can measure directly, right? We have analytics, we know what we're doing and we can measure them. Then you talked about like, in hiring and retention, I would say that more than 50% candidates that I have interviewed over the last 6 months, 12 months, they all make a mention of, hey, you know what? I love the whole idea of what you guys are doing, like driving. In fact, just half an hour ago, I was connecting with a colleague in Canada because we're looking to kind of hire there as well. And, she's, working elsewhere, of course, but just helping to find some people since she knows the tech market in the region. And she's like, hey, I would
Yeah.
like to be engaged with the company somehow because, I love the mission, right? So I think we definitely see that. And the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, if you could be in a corporate job, have your, primary responsibilities of paying for my house, getting my kids to college and so on. But at the same time, while doing all that without compromising on your sort of incoming wealth in your younger age, also make the world a better place, that gives you this sort of sense of belonging and satisfaction that leads to retention in our mind, right? So we haven't measured it explicitly, but we do have a very low attrition rate in the company, in all of our locations, right? So we think that's probably driven by partly this, but I would say that that's part we haven't measured. It's more anecdotal. The first part of how many people we are connecting and so on, we obviously measure it pretty well.
Right. It'd be interesting if you could actually see the impact you're having on the lives of the people that you're servicing and bridging that probably pretty hard to do, but I bet it actually is having a pretty big impact on their economic perspective, their social circles, their connected to the culture that they're living in. I'm sure there's just a million different things that it actually helps improve, because it really is almost like oxygen or water. Like your digital life is just inherently important in the democratization of that and making sure everybody has good access to clean water, electricity, and the internet. I think the internet is structural. It absolutely is something that's going to be super important. It is now and will always be that way. And I don't think that ever changes.
Absolutely. I think we had talked about going back to some of the places where we went in early before connectivity or when we trained. And then, I was giving you an example earlier where some of the folks went to a village. There were 2 days of, training people with technology. But, with COVID, we haven't been able to do that yet. We absolutely would like to do that, follow up on it, because we had all agreed that, hey, this will be great to go back to. Almost like a before and after, not for necessarily the purpose of advertisement, but for the purpose of us, right? Just it's like a huge deal of satisfaction in knowing what substantial change did it bring. Is it a systemic, lasting change did we bring? Right? Because those are the kind of things that gives you a lot of satisfaction in doing what you're doing. But unfortunately, we haven't been able to do it yet. But it is in the cards, and I'm hoping that we get to a point where we COVID, we can put it behind us. It doesn't look like we're there yet, but looks like we're headed in that direction. Or some days I feel like we're headed, and some days not. But we eventually will go do that, and I think that will be a good sort of activity for us to perform.
Speaking of COVID, I'm sure that had a massive impact on your business. A lot of people went into 2020 with a plan, then they got punched in the face of the pandemic and had to replan the year. What was the impact that COVID had on your company internally, but then also externally with your customers and the people that you're servicing in terms of the digital divide? How did COVID impact the business and your philanthropic efforts?
Sure. So I think when it comes to our customers who are our paying customers in the US, as I mentioned earlier, we have policies in place that are very much like what we would like, right, for ourselves. One of the product feature we have is called Best Fit. It basically, so let's say you have a 10 gigabyte plan for whatever, $50, and there's also a 3 gigabyte plan for $25, but you don't know what you're going to use. I think with COVID, a lot of people working from home were on Wi-Fi. We automatically charge them the least plan, right? So even if they have a $50 plan, they use less, we charge them less, right? Now that happened a lot, and a lot of people, our customers, got the benefit of it because all of a sudden their bill went down without, it's like you watching less TV and Comcast picked up the phone and called you saying, hey, Jason, you watched less TV, I'm going to charge you less. It's never going to happen in your lifetime, right? So we do one better. We don't even call, we just charge you less. And that did lead to decline in our revenue because a lot of people are working from home. But that's great. I mean, we still make money on people we charge less. We just make less money. And we as a company made a deliberate choice that it's okay to make less money because eventually there'll be more people who will join the club, so to speak, and we will make less money from more people. And that's still fine, right? However, on the other side of it, people who were getting impacted by COVID, I don't have a mathematical evidence, and I think it will come out from World Economic Forum over time, but at least the anecdotal evidence suggests that there were more people in need of connectivity, in need of having sort of internet. So that went up, right? So our part size went down a little, but our demand to, fill from the pot went up. So, which wasn't a great thing, but we were hoping to catch up on that. But on the upside, we did connect close to 1.5 million students in Latin America to do schooling from home. So it wasn't funded by us. The government funded the program. The local Brazilian government funded the program. And we provided the technology to make the education toll-free. Think of it as 1-800 number for calling, but it was toll-free education apps for them, funded by the Brazilian government, and technology provided by us. So that was great to see that we could bring millions of students to school virtually during pandemic without them having to worry about paying for using their data.
I'm looking for questions, so let me see here. I'm not seeing any questions pop up, and we only have a few more minutes, so I want to make sure I prompt folks to ask questions. I don't know. I know David's out there. I don't know who's all on this, but I just want to make sure we prompt. If anybody has a question that's burning, please ask it. And I'll also
on the chat I saw, but I'll let you see if you want me to answer that or.
Oh yeah, go for it. Oh, so why don't you tell? Let's see here. Have you changed your personal media consumption since the pandemic started?
So there are two questions here. Do you want me to just read and answer them, Jason? Or
yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah. Oh, now they're coming in.
Okay,
There's lots of
so
questions.
I guess the first question is, why didn't you tell people? They could have been, gracefully and really helped word of mouth. We do have it published in our app for customers. I would admit that, we are not, I think we're still learning on how to be kind of humble and modest, but at the same time get the word out, right? So we didn't really invest in advertising behind we are connecting these people, right? Kind of beat our own chest with it. We do have it. The data is available to our customers, but yes, I think we could have done a better job in getting the word out. Has the crisis forced modification to short, mid, long-term goals and how you measure success based on the changes in consumer behavior? I think, it has furthered our resolve to do more. But I think that, we have become more bullish on our plans, to get more connectivity. So I would say that our intent is to invest more later part of this year and next year. And we are in the middle of raising capital to do that. And we are quite hopeful that we'll get there.
That's great.
I think that's similar to the next question, adjusting marketing and digital transformation. Yes, we are looking to make significant investments in the digital side to acquire more customers in the second half of this year and into next year.
And then what was your biggest operational challenge internally to creating impact and purpose? I imagine it's not.
I would say that since we started day one with the DNA, so it was a little bit easier for people to kind of grasp it and be part of it. And we also worked very hard to create what we call the Reach 10 principles, which are published on our site as well. And I think that has helped us tremendously operationally. I think we let people at all levels make their own decisions within the organization, and we say, hey, if in doubt, first refer to Reach 10, right? If you need to make a decision, go left or right. The very simple thing you can do without even reading Reach 10 is that if it were done for myself, will I go left or right? If the answer is left, then go left. If the answer is right, go right. Because if you think you're going to like it for yourself, there's a very good chance your customer is going to like it as well, right? But then at the same time, stay fiscally responsible, right? We are a business at the end. We have to generate profit for investors. So that's also one of our Reach 10 principles, which is stay fiscally responsible. But I think that has been tremendously helpful in terms of making decisions for people.
Excellent. Well, Harjot, thank you so much for joining us today and telling your stories. Much appreciated. Ariel, how are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you for asking. Thank you both for coming onto the stage for such an incredible session. And I hope that we can see you both again soon.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you.
Have a great day. So with that, we now